Welcome, friends, new and true, to Living with Intention. I'm April Wyatt, your wellness advocate, and I'm here to offer different avenues for wellness for you to place your attention on your intention to live a more balanced life. From my own experiences and the work I've done with numerous individuals, I've found that we have forgotten our essence, our true nature. As I shared in my last podcast exclusive, Remembering Your Essence, I talked about essence and walked you through a visualization so you could get a little bit more of a feel and recognize the light that you hold within yourself and how your light connects to you and other people, your community. It just expands. You're the ripple effect. That's what it boils down to. You are the ripple effect, and that essence, your light, is always there. And today we will continue exploring your essence and bring you other opportunities to discover more about you. In the previous episodes, we've talked about the Sophia Code and human design and how they can possibly assist you in exploring your essence. And as I keep talking about exploring and your essence and ways of doing that, you may now realize that there are many different modalities to connect to your essence. And for example, in the past, I've used vision boards to inspire and help manifest a goal or an idea that I had. And I still find them helpful. Although today we're going to dive a little deeper past a vision and explore your essence through soul collage. For those of you who aren't familiar with soul collage, it is a modality that uses images that you've chosen to provide more insight to what it is you're going through. I find soul collage to be a great resource for when it's hard to put into words of how you're feeling or what you're even experiencing during that time, and maybe need a different way to express what's happening in your life. And creating soul collage also allows you to connect to your essence because it provides more of a tangible visual effect where you can actually build off of. And we'll unpack that a little bit more here today. So my next guest is Joy Johnson, and she is a certified soul collage guide. And you may have heard Lacey Bowles mention joy and soul collage in the third episode of Feeding Your Soul series, because that's what she says that helps feed her soul is soul collage. And as you all know, if you've been following me for a while, I always work with wonderful people that I personally know. Joy is a wonderful friend who I met actually through her massage therapy practice. And what I love about her is how it's easy to connect with Joy due to her experiences and skills she's developed as a psychotherapist, because she's able to listen at a deeper level. And also, combined with her intuitive abilities as a healer, she's able to hold space with compassion and offers support with grace, because Joy really truly cares about your well being. As you will witness here today, Joy has a beautiful authenticity and has a focus of being of service for others. Her dedication of assisting others in discovering their own soul's inner truth and witnessing their own healing powers within. That's what Joy's purpose is to be that guide for you. And that's a perfect example of working from the inside out. Right. I always talk about that. So please welcome my friends, Joy Johnston. Thank you, Joy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, April. A little reflection for myself.
Yes, I only speak the truth, my friend. Yes. And I really appreciate you being here and bringing this wonderful insight of soul collage and how people can utilize it to connect to those deeper parts of themselves. And before we begin, do you mind sharing a little bit about your story and what you've learned along your way?
Sure. You already shared that first I became a psychotherapist. And so first I like out of high school, I went directly to college and grad school and primarily worked with foster kids in Chicago using that skill. And then I ended up along the way, I learned Reiki, and that called to my soul. And so then I, just in the course of reading different books about the way that we heal, I got curious about other avenues of healing beyond like psychotherapy, and I wanted to do Reiki more. And so I found this very unique massage school taught by clinical psychologists that incorporated a lot of energy healing modalities and cranial sacral, the more subtle things that kind of bridge the psychological aspect of ourselves and our physical bodies, and even delved into kind of more intuitive and spiritual aspects. It just was the right fit for me. And just kind of a nice segue into soul collage. The way that I discovered that modality was through one of my friends that I made in massage school, who shared some pictures of her soul collage cards that she made on Facebook. And I was so taken with their
Mm.
otherworldliness and even the captions that she put on them. I just was like, what is that? I would like to know more about that. And so I took a class in 2011 and was introduced to it that way to make them on my own. And then I took the facilitator training in 2014. And since that time, I've hosted groups where we gather together and make the cards. And I like everything. I feel like I learn best by doing it.
Mm.
And the process of it teaches me more than anything I ever learn in a class. That was the case with psychotherapy, Reiki, massage, everything. It's like the the class is just to kind of introduce you, right? The real teacher is the practice itself. So
Oh, yes, perfectly said. It is. It is that practice and learning more. We think we're showing up for this class to, learn to do something, but it's really you're remembering more about ourselves during that process. Yeah.
yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar with the soul collage, how is it different from vision boards or just journaling or those types of practices? What
Yeah,
makes it different?
that's a great question. So usually in a vision board, we enter into that process with our conscious mind, thinking, what kinds of things do I want to create in my life? What is my vision for the future? And so we're kind of um, sort through images looking for a specific thing, whereas soul collage draws more from the emotional, intuitive, um, instinctual part of ourselves, where instead of approaching the images with a specific goal in mind, we kind of go at it with a more open, blank slate approach. And then we just start looking through images, and whatever ones we have a strong emotional reaction to are the ones that we're picking, selecting. And so a good kind of rule of thumb to follow is to look through images. You can look through magazines, you can look through photographs, you can even look through images on the internet in this day and age and print them off, you know. Um, and so then we select about 5 to 15 at a time. And then the cards are about this size. I think it's like a 5x7 size.
Mhm.
So then from like the 5 or 15 images that you have, you kind of sort through and figure out which ones want to go together. And there's absolutely no rule at all about how many fit on a I'll give you some examples just to look at. Like I kind of pick out the ones that will fit this
Yeah.
format. Like this one has two women sitting in sitting in mirroring image, sitting in chairs, and then there's a woman drinking from a cup, like a coffee cup or a teacup, and then there's two people dragging a like a Christmas tree kind of a thing. So that was made with 3 images. This
Mhm.
one was made with 2 images. There's just this person and a tree in the background. Like
Yeah, it
sometimes,
looks like a fall colored tree in the background, and it has a woman. She's like just what is she doing? A back bend, or she looks like
right.
she's falling but gracefully, like she's surrendering.
Yeah, I think she was doing a yoga pose in the picture,
Okay.
but this card I call free. You know, it's
Ah,
the energy of freedom, and it's like any which way you want to do it, it works.
yeah, and I love how you just showed those so that way people can see how the images can be transposed on top of another image, because that's what's intriguing about it. There's like depth, even though it's 2D, it really feels like it's 4 or 5D. Uh,
Yes. And like
you
you
can
can
really
really play
feel
with
it.
perspective. Like I've got in this particular card, there's like a duck, and it's larger than life because then there's like a Native American chief person,
Uh-huh.
smaller than the duck. And then there's 4 people walking even smaller than that. It's very otherworldly. And
Yes, it is.
I think, um, I I think one reason why Soul Collage really spoke to me is because since I took the route of academia first, you know, our school system and even a lot in our culture very focuses on kind of the left hemisphere of our brain and making things, you know, it values kind of logic over um, imagination and quantitative things, things that you can quantify, add up, you know, even business is kind of
Hmm.
taught that way versus like qualitative, like what's the energy that is behind this? What's the intention behind what you're doing? What is the purpose? Like that is more. And so the images speak to the right hemisphere of our brain, like um, they evoke emotion and kind of an instinctual response, and it's the language of symbolism, which also like speaks to that
Yeah.
brain right hemisphere of our brain. And I feel like that is the language of our soul, you know.
Yes.
It's that instinctual like reaction to something that sparks something inside of us where we just feel like, oh, that just hit me in a really
Mm.
powerful way. I need to listen to that message that just, came to me and slow down and
Yeah, and those images, they're just so powerful because they come from us in a different depth. Like when we're connected to our essence and we're working with the materials, and that's where um I just want to say magic, it just happens, right? It just comes forward and then you can see those images in a different light. I also want to go back to how you said, it just really resonates with us, like the internal part and the symbolism. So think about this, and this for everyone, you know, thousands of years ago, we were drawing on walls, right? There was symbols, there was things before real language even developed. So
it
this
was
is
that
really,
primal.
yes, that's the primal part. That's down to our ancestors. That's down to our DNA of what humanism is, right? Being human. And I really like that perspective, Joy, of, our society tends to say we have to go and do these things and earn accreditations and, you know, learn to get to a goal. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, although we lose that part of our essence. We lose what is the motivation? What is this innate part of ourselves that we need to remember to connect to while we're doing those things?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I myself felt out of balance with my focus,
Mm.
just courtesy of my background and training. Then I just felt like um, I had kind of lost my connection with my own intuition through the course of living my life. And then I didn't even do this consciously. I just, looking back, I saw myself, you know, seeking out or being interested in all these different ways to tune back into that intuitive ability, that natural intuitive ability, because it is another way of knowing and gathering information. And I, I mean, for me personally, it felt like it wasn't supported in the messages that I was getting from society of listening to that part of ourselves. And so, um, that's why I've been drawn to all these different techniques that teach us how to, you know, tune in to that part, that knowing. There's something that I have found in sharing it with people can be confusing. And so I have learned to not talk about it until people have had a chance to go through the process of creating their own card. But the founder of it, her name is Sina Frost. And I just want to mention, if people are really interested in this, like there's resources, like there's books that have like explanation of how to do it. And but she kind of came up with this process organically. She was attending classes and workshops with a bunch of different friends that kind of kept going to the same workshops that were kind of looking at, she's a psychotherapist. So she was interested in kind of where psychology meets spirituality and
Mm.
talking about archetypes. And so she found herself making cards that represented her friends in the workshops. And then, so she had some of those cards. It's like, here's my friend Sally, and here's my friend Mary, and here's my friend. And then she started making cards that represented like parts of herself. And so then it was like she created a system where it's like there's 4 different suits of cards. And so there's the committee, which represents aspects of ourselves. There's the community cards, which represent people that we know. Could also represent pets or like celebrities. And then there's the council cards that are kind of like an overarching archetype. And
Mm.
then there's a companion suit, which she has like a guided meditation to tune into your chakras and then tune into one that wants to come forward and then invite an animal to reveal itself. This is kind of complicated, but
Yeah, that
um
goes a little deep.
and then she also has like transpersonal cards. She suggests making a card to represent source
Mm.
and our soul essence and our inner witness. And soul collage is so fun. You know, a lot of us, I feel like art in general, again, speaks to that right hemisphere of our brain, music, you know, any kind of artwork. But so many of us don't have the ability to create with our, you know, hands, like exactly an image that we see in our mind's eye.
Mm.
And so that's why I think so many people are love soul collage, because you don't have to have any kind of artistic ability. Not that we don't all have that ability, you know, but it's really user friendly that way.
Mm.
And like the cards, you can buy them from like just a pack of cards um from Amazon or from Hanford Mead.
Are
Um,
they called like just card stock, or what do they need to be a certain thickness? They kind of look a little thicker than just, getting a blank piece of printer paper.
they are card stock, and they're yeah, I guess they say they're 5x8 Soul Collage card pack. But I have a friend that made them forever, and she made her own. You know, she just had one of those. She would buy card stock, and they have protective sleeves that you can put on to kind of protect them from the weather. And you know, the edges of things can kind of curl and make it harder to, because when you have a big stack, then it's kind of like your own personalized oracle card deck that you can draw from to do
Yes.
like readings. And it really speaks to you because you know you've created them, and so the meaning behind them is so deep and personalized.
Mm. Yeah,
So
can you walk us through that? Because that was my next question. It was like, yes, now we've made these beautiful cards. Now what do you do with them? Do you just prop them up and admire them, or what's the use, right?
yeah.
Because they are beautiful little pieces of art, really.
Yes, and everybody uses them differently. Like I said, you could draw from them for an oracle card reading. Like some people like to draw a card a day to guide them, like what are the themes that are going to come up today. Some people like to draw several cards, and then like all three or four of them speak to the issue. Like when we had our I guess a what they suggest, like in the soul collage training. Well, and you can even ask specific questions. Like you could have an open-ended question, what card would help me most today? Or you could ask about a specific issue, you know, like this is the dilemma that I'm struggling with, and I don't know which path to choose, you know. One way to think of these is that they're like helpers for us. And sometimes I
Mm.
like to display them in my house, actually, in certain areas, kind of even according to the Bagua, the feng
Oh,
shui,
yes,
you know,
feng
like this
shui.
is my helper in this part of my life. And especially when I make them, I used to, so there's a journaling template too. That's another way of kind of going farther with the card, is just to start journaling on it, and there's like specific um questions to ask, which like I thought I'd put them up here so that people can like snapshot it if they want to, but we
Okay.
can still say like one of the things that we tend to say in a soul collage card is I am one who, and then you speak from every image in the card. Um,
So give
So,
us an example of that. So
right.
Joy is holding up this card, and in the very background, I see a tree with the sun coming through it in the upper right-hand corner. And then the left-hand corner, it looks like is it a flower coming, like a red flower? And then in the middle is like, it looks like you're looking through, um, like a orb or like, it's a circular shape. What would you call that, Joy? Looking
Mhm.
through a window, and there's a lot happening in that card right now. So I really hope everybody goes to the YouTube video of this so you can really appreciate these images. Oh my gosh, it's like you're everywhere you look, there's something there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I can say right now. So walk us through that joy of
Yeah.
you pull that card and then you ask what? Or you're making the card, what were the questions? Is that when you're
Yeah.
making it or when you are
No,
looking at
it's
it?
afterwards. Like I would
Oh, okay.
suggest just following your emotional reaction in selecting the images and picking which ones go together and how to arrange them on the card. Um and that's fun, that's using our creative juices of how we want to stick it all together. And then afterwards I think it's helpful then to start bringing in the words, I guess, because
Okay.
words can be kind of limiting. And the general suggestion in Soul Collage is to not use words on the cards, but every once in a while, a word gets on there from a magazine page, maybe purposefully or unintentionally. I mean, I always encourage people to do it their way, learn the
Sure.
basics. Here's the basic structure and the basic suggestion, but do whatever your soul wants to do with
Ah,
this card. Whatever it's calling to you. Sometimes we're supposed to break the rules, right?
yes. Yeah, whatever feels right. So what I'm hearing you say is that gather images and then whatever resonates with you, and then you place them on the card, however it fits or feels good to you, and then you start asking questions.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you want to, so I have done the journaling process with all the cards that I've made. I've made over 100 at this point because it helped. I like that process. I'm a journaler. I like to go in deep and have words to call them because it feels like a friend. I want to get to know you. What do you have to say to me?
Oh,
Um, but I have a friend, she and I used to host a group together, and she doesn't do any of that. She doesn't, she's not someone that likes to journal. She kind of wishes she would, but it's just not her process. But in the moment, she can speak from the card actually more fluidly than I can. I feel like
okay.
it's easier for me to write it out than to speak in the moment. We're all wired different.
Mm,
But
it's true.
yeah, but so usually like a good way to approach it if you want to is to speak from every single image in the card. I am one who playfully enters other realms, playfully climbs trees to enter into a whole nother world. I am one with calm presence and power and
Mm.
instinctual wisdom. That's the leopard speaking. I am one who throws her hands up in joy and celebration, who knows how to enjoy the moment. And this, I want to get up closer so you can see it kind of looks like clouds, but as you get closer, there's like images of
Oh,
lions and
yes.
face in there. I am a deeper wisdom witnessing what is happening below. I am full of grace and beauty, you know. Um, and then the next question after you say, I am one who is, what do you have to give me?
Hmm.
And so, and what do you want from me? How will I remember? What is your shadow side? And what is the core meaning of this card, its essence? And so this card actually kind of evolved a little bit in time. At first, it was representing kind of a friend that I had that I was trading sessions with. Sally Bale is her name. She in Des Moines, she's a Reiki master. And but she was also introducing me to the Moonai rites. And it was kind of related to like the part of our brain that can imagine and access the soul realm. And
Hmm.
and so, but then eventually what this card represents to me is shamanic journeying, kind of um entering another realm that
Hmm.
can feel as true as this one. It's just in another dimension or level of being.
It
So,
is. Yes. And people can find that in other aspects too, for those who aren't so familiar with shamanism and, connecting to nature, um, even being with a group of soul sisters, right? And having some really deep, stimulating conversation. It's just you just feel like your heart is open and you're just part of all the things. That's all I can say. That's how I experience that.
well, and some people like don't need this as a way to access the voice of their soul or what their soul is calling them to listen to, you know. That's what I was just thinking, you know, it's not for everybody and some people don't need it. I needed it 12 years ago when I found it, to open up to that right hemisphere and the language of symbolism, and just recognizing that, yeah, the deep wisdom of my soul, like, because it has shown me, um, you know, I've made a card and then years later I'll look at it and I'll be like, whoa, my soul knew what was coming. You know, there's a little bit of a timelessness to it, but our
Mm.
souls speak to us in different ways. And I was just, you know, you said
Sure,
it wouldn't be for you. You know, you
exactly.
already have a way of the soul speaking to you. So,
Yes. Can I ask you another question? So, what was that pivotal point in your life 12 years ago that drew you to the Soul Collage? What was happening for you?
um, at that time, I was living in Des Moines and had been a massage therapist for about 4 years. What was the pivotal moment? Um, you know, I guess when I look back at that time of my life, I had just broken up with a boyfriend. And when we broke up, I felt a desire to turn more to my own spiritual development, I guess. I really felt like I wanted to get very centered, connected
Mm.
within myself and with um, source, and open up that communication, you know. I think that's, yeah. And before I took the class, I uh, I wrote a poem. It just kind of came out of me, you know. And it was really about this part of me that could love myself unconditionally, who has been loving myself unconditionally. And and then the very first card that I ever made is this one,
Oh,
and it's called the tender. And it really is about like an aspect of me that tends to what is tender, in others, within myself. I always think the first card that we make is it's a very important one that really speaks to us, to what our soul, I don't know, journey could be about. So
yes. And it's
yeah.
constantly our soul is constantly speaking to us. And this is just another avenue. As you said, Joy, you don't have to do soul collage, but this is just another avenue for those who aren't into art, like you said, who, you appreciate pictures and images, it's tangible, you can touch it, you can see it, the visualization of it. And that for me, that's what is very engaging as we look at those images. So just knowing that there's different ways to touch into your essence and that soul collage can be part of that. Just amazing cards, Joy, and you've been exploring with soul collage for a while now. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like when you do hold a workshop? What does that entail?
Um, well, I would bring the materials. That's one benefit of going to an in-person workshop, because just for anybody who is listening and is interested in trying this themselves, once COVID hit, they do offer online ones on if you want to go to soulcollage.com and look at you know, free uh online trainings that way, but in person, and I'm in Iowa, just so people know if someone wants to reach out and have me host a workshop. But I would bring a lot of materials. I have a lot of cards, glue sticks,
Need
scissors,
those
that's
glue
really
sticks.
all you need. What? Yeah. And magazines, I have a lot. I didn't have any when I first started learning soul collage, and so I was nervous about how I would get images. But if you go to libraries, a lot of times they give away or sell for really cheap, like a quarter or 50 cents, old magazines. You can go to the half price bookstore and get images. But in a workshop, all of that would be just provided. And so just given the simple introduction or instruction about go into this with a blank slate, instead of with a conscious intention, and let
Mm,
the images speak to you. It's like the general rule of thumb is if you're going and you gasp in recognition or in a response, positive or negative, that image is speaking to you. And so pull it out. You don't have to do anything with it right then if it's a scary one. I held on to a scary image for 8 years before I was ready to put it on a card. And so that's okay, but that image is speaking to you and your soul. And when you're ready to look at it and put it on a card, you will. Um, and then, like I said, kind of arrange them. And then, depending on how long the workshop is, then usually we like to share our cards with one another and what maybe the images represent or what we know of it. Some people are very good at knowing right away and what this card represents in their life, and some of us need some time or maybe to be by ourselves to have it talk to us. When I've shared it with so many people, it's interesting to me just to see all the different ways that this comes out in people. And another rule of thumb that we follow in soul collage is generally the maker of the card is kind of the authority on the card. Like they are the one that knows what it represents for them, and we're not to interject or project our
mm,
what the symbols mean to us. we respect and listen to them. Only if they want us to say what we see in it do we offer that, because it really is kind of helping us respect um, the other person's perspective and their soul, speaking through the images. So I like that. I'm drawn to anything that respects, like the person's ultimate authority on their life.
Yes, and that's their journey. That's their card. Um, and you just saying that just reminds me of, somebody wearing a certain shirt with a pattern on it, and somebody says, "Oh, I love that shirt," and somebody says, "Why are they even wearing that shirt?" We have those judgments and we project them on people, and we don't even realize we're doing that. So I love that this workshop, it sounds like it's also you've set the intention of having more of a sacred space, of allowing people to be transparent and vulnerable as they're exploring, because especially if you're new to this, it could be kind of at first a little challenging. I would have to say, to have the blank slate of no expectations of myself or what images is I'm quote unquote looking for me, that would be the challenge. I think maybe for me that would be the big obstacle to get over, to allow to just be and not feel that I have to find an image right away. Feel that blank card is staring at me asking for something to be put on there. Yeah, so how do you walk somebody through that if they're having a challenge or they're just kind of feeling overwhelmed about that?
When you just shared that, how that would be a challenge for you, I would give you permission to do it your way. If you got the A in your name, right? You told me that. Focus, like, and you're all about like, what's your intention? I'm living with intention. It's okay to approach it that way if that's the way that works for you. But I bet you my bottom dollar that if you went in there with an intention, that images would jump out at you that you
Mm.
weren't consciously looking for. And the process would show you, here's another way,
Mm,
and maybe it would be like, here's my consciously created card, and here's my card I didn't even know I was looking for, but my soul showed me wanted to show me, something
yes.
a deeper, because I think that's why I love soul collage too, is because it's not made generally from our conscious intention that what is unconscious can come up,
Mm,
and now we can see it consciously, right? It's like now
yes.
it's revealing something that we're ready to look at. And so I just mentioned that to you, April, because even like you sharing like what you think, just hearing about this would be your challenge, it might work better for you to hear about those four suits. Maybe your conscious mind
Yes.
is so like involved that it's like,
Mhm.
I want, which kind of card do I want to make? And then let that guide you. Some people
Yes.
like a little structure to work within, and some people resist structure. So I just think
Mhm.
you know, all ways are good ways. There's no right or wrong, whatever way works for you.
Exactly. And you, working with these cards and holding these workshops, what if the participants witnessed? What can you share any feedback or any kind of aha moments they've had when constructing soul collage cards?
I can think about a lot of, I guess, ahas, just, you know, like I guess one friend was having challenges with one of her teenage son. He was just really on his mind. And sometimes when we would gather together to make cards, we would talk about whatever was going in our lives while we're making the cards. Sometimes we'd be very silent, it's just very free form. But at the end of that particular session, she was sharing like she's kind of struggling with that, parenting him, figuring out how to parent him in a way that would help him best. And then she ended up making a card kind of representing him. And it really helped her, I think, just to process through those emotions and to see him differently. And
Yes.
so then she came away from that feeling like something had gotten worked through and she could approach it in the way that, she wanted to without feeling, I guess, frustrated or whatever she was feeling.
Mm. I like hearing that she was able to see him in a different light, or actually probably, I don't know, right? I can't say. For me, I can only speak for myself. Because I like to visualize as people are talking and sharing that she actually remembered his essence, maybe, and she could approach him differently as she created that card because she was, working through her heart and not the mind and the judgment and the frustration. It allowed her to see him in a different light, so to speak.
I think that's true. Yeah, very well put, April, to see his
Oh.
essence.
Hmm.
See from the
Yes.
broader perspective of our soul, because
Yeah.
it's so hard when we're stuck in the middle of the forest to see the forest
Mhm.
for the trees. Yeah.
Yes.
We're having those challenging emotions.
Yeah. So, Joy, I have a question for you. How has Soul Collage helped you in any challenges? Can you describe a challenge that you were having and either creating a card or revisiting a card and how that helped to help you move through that challenge or just see it in a different light?
Yes. um, so One, one of my friends here in town, she knew Soul Collage too. We actually think we learned it at the same exact class way back in 2011. And then we had a mutual friend here who got us together and we all, she knew, anyway, she knew we both knew Soul Collage. But so this woman was wanting to host different groups connecting with our soul here in the area. And so she invited me to come to the open house that she was having to talk about Soul Collage because we were going to host a Soul Collage class. And there were women that came. And so I was invited to speak on it and I'm trying to explain it. And I have in my life, I have sometimes struggled to put into words what I'm thinking. Like I've had speech impediments as a child. I mispronounce words. Sometimes there's just this glitch between my brain and my mouth. And so I can feel kind of disconnected, within myself from my mouth to my brain, being able to express it clearly. And also, I don't like the feeling of feeling disconnected from others. I really enjoy the feeling of like, I understand you, you understand me, we're totally jiving here. And when there's a disconnect, I'm just like, ah, uncomfortable, awkward moment here. So when I was explaining Soul Collage to these ladies, there was like several in the room, and a couple of them were interested, but they were quiet. The three that were more boisterous and kind of vocal in the group, like they looked at me and I'm explaining it, and they just give me this blank look, and then they turn in unison back to the host, like, okay, thanks, what next? Like not interested, don't get it. And so it was very powerful because the next morning, I ended up making some cards, and I made, like, we call them shadow cards when they kind of relate to an
Yeah.
aspect of ourselves that is uncomfortable. And this is
Yes.
my card that represents that feeling of
So Joy
disconnection.
Joy is holding up a card right now, and on there there's a woman who looks very kind of nervous. Her eyes are kind of turned to the side like she's not making eye contact, and her mouth is a little open like she's kind of sucking her teeth like, "Ooh, I don't know." And then there's a cascade of, is it leaves coming kind of from her headspace down. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, Joy.
In the background, it's really hard to see with the glare and just in this format, but the background is kind of a pinky white, and it's like the ocean and then the sky, but they look so similarly colored. It's kind of hard to see where one begins and then next one ends. And so this woman's face totally fit the way that I felt in that moment. Like, uh-oh,
Awkward.
yeah, awkward. How did I not explain this right? Because I'm thinking to myself, why wouldn't you be interested in this? Everybody would be, but I've since discovered, yeah, it's not for everyone. And that's fine, right? But when I was making the card and kind of journaling on it, I really realized that I had the strongest aha when I was looking at the ocean and the sky here, and the way that they look so similar, and it's hard to tell where one is and the other one ends. I just realized that the the sense of disconnection and separation is an illusion. Like, at the core of everything, we're all love, we're all from the same source. And so it's just a moment in time where I'm feeling disconnected, but really I'm not. And also, like, I always want to be expressing myself the best way possible, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we trip over our words. Sometimes we put our foot in our mouth and say the wrong
Yes.
thing. And it's okay. Like, it's just a part of being human. And so really making this card helped me embrace this part of myself that was always so uncomfortable and that I felt shame about. And so when it would come up, because I tend to draw a card for every morning, I'd be like, uh-oh, what moment of disconnection is coming for me today? Great. Thanks. But now now it's like one of my favorite cards because I've totally had a different um experience with this dynamic in myself and in my life, where, I mean, it's taught me how to love myself regardless, unconditionally, regardless of what happens, and to love myself through the awkward moments, and to see the beauty of what is happening and just trust that it's okay. And a lot of times it's all in my head, right? Like, I love how you talked about this cascade coming from her head. Like, that's not necessarily something that I saw before, but sometimes it's just all in our head that we think that there's this disconnect, but really, you know, just because someone's expression on their face isn't like, I totally get you.
Right.
They might be totally getting us.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I so really do appreciate your transparency in sharing that, those moments where we feel like, what did we do wrong? The shame or guilt associated with that, and being able to create a card, that's us. It's like really deep self-care, that it comes from us, that we actually created this, co-created, right, with our essence, and can tap back into that and know that we are safe, we're supported, just like you said, Joy. Besides Soul Collage, what other services do you provide? How else do you support others who are looking to discover more about themselves?
I am a Gene Keys guide. And since you've shared human design on this podcast, Gene Keys is kind of an offshoot of human design. It relates to the same 64 gates. The founder of Gene Keys. Well, anyways, I don't need to go all into Gene Keys, but it's a way of discovering our own essence. It kind of focuses on our prime gifts that we have to offer in the world. It talks about wounds from our childhood that are kind of triggers for us, that are ways of kind of like tending to those wounds and interfacing with them in a different way so that we can improve our relationships and be more loving with ourselves, with others, instead of reacting from that wounded place. And then there's a part kind of how we're designed to interface with the greater world to be of service. And so again, I'm drawn to Gene Keys as a modality because it is very inside out. It's as a Gene Keys guide, it's not like I'm going to look at someone's chart and give them a reading. It is more of a self-paced, self-contemplative practice of looking within, taking the ideas from the Gene Keys and then applying them to our own life experiences and emotions, and finding the ways that it's playing out in our lives. And so, like, as a guide, it would just be like, I understand the Gene Keys system, but you in your life and how these themes and these archetypes are playing out. And so we'll be having a conversation.
Yes, it's very fascinating. Joy has done a reading or a guide for me for Gene Keys, and it is very eye-opening. And as you said, it's not particularly a reading. I say it's instead of like self-help, looking for things for self-help, it's more about self-discovery. So it's discovering more, and for me, it really just kind of, oh, that makes perfect sense when Joy was sharing these little nuggets that she had through this Gene Keys. And then I could see how that played out in my life. And it's not good or bad. It's not saying, oh, these are these terrible things and you have to change them. It's more of a different approach of, oh, okay, that's how I am relating to the world. That's what I'm, you know, how I work, how I manage because of these uh, keys through my genes. It's kind of hardwired into myself. And once I'm aware of it, like the human design, once it's like, oh, okay, I'm aware of this now, so I can better prepare or recognize when these little things come up for me.
And the
And
other thing that did I just cut you off, April?
no, you did
Oh,
not.
and then I'm currently going through a course of learning how to do something called Beyond Quantum Healing, which is using kind of like hypnosis techniques to access that deeper wisdom within. It's kind of a more lengthy session, but it definitely guides somebody through their own process of kind of going deep within the deep recesses of their subconscious and bringing
Mm.
forward that soul truth. And so again, it's just right up my alley in terms of how I like to, and even coming back around to the psychotherapy, there's lots of different versions of psychotherapy out there. And I'm not a current psychotherapist, but the the school that I chose to go to was one that was called client centered. And it was really from the paradigm of the client is the ultimate authority of their life. And I'm just here as a sacred witness to listen with unconditional positive regard, understanding that just that simple process of being listened to without judgment is a very powerful way of helping somebody learn more about themselves and love them.
Yes. Yes, and you are a wonderful mirror, right? So, uh, and that's who you are, Joy. Um, your authenticity, the way that you are really listening. And some people, they don't have that. They have never experienced somebody who really meets them where they're at and truly listens. And you're just not listening to words, you're listening like with your intuition, with energy, all those things. And that's how you're able to support people. And also, currently, what you're doing working with people in hospice. And can you just share a little bit about that too?
Yeah, I am working right now as a massage therapist with hospice patients. And so I feel like I'm kind of coming back around to my roots of what led me into massage in the first place, because it is a lot of gentle work and a lot of Reiki, and it is a lot of listening for sure. Yeah, it's one of the parts of hospice is when people are entering that end of life, it's natural to look back on our lives and see what exactly transpired in my life and what was the purpose of it and what are my interesting stories or my legacy that I'm leaving behind. And so it's my deep honor and privilege to be a witness to that, to be a part of that process, to be invited in, in those moments when our bodies are breaking down, and
Mm,
yes, to be invited into their life and to be a part of it. I think it's a sacred passageway, a sacred threshold crossing, to go when we die from this life to the next. And um yeah, it's again, it when I took the job, I knew it was for me, but I knew that I would learn a lot along the way. But there are things that I learned that I didn't know that I needed to learn or wanted to learn. My soul led me down the road.
yes, that's what's wonderful about you is that you also lead with your heart and then you're open to learn right from it and share your experiences. Yeah. And that's so needed too in our society, whether it's somebody in hospice, whether it's somebody in crisis, whether it's somebody who is kind of lost and disconnected to themselves or they want more, it's that searching, that seeking, and you are just the perfect guide to help those in those transitionary periods.
Thank you,
Yeah.
April. I would say
Oh,
the same to you. You listen with a full bodied presence too. I always know that you're 100% present.
mm, yes, living with intention. So, for those who are interested to learn more, either have questions about our conversation today, are curious about maybe how you can support them, or maybe get in contact with you to organize a soul collage workshop or collaborate even with you, what is your contact information?
Yeah, I have a website, openforhealing.com, and that'd probably be the easiest because it has my phone number and my email on there, and you're welcome to reach out those ways too. But
Great. Any Facebook or Instagram handles or just basically openforhealing.com?
Openforhealing.com. Yeah. I
Okay,
had a Facebook page and don't at the moment, and I'm
that's
not
perfectly fine.
using Instagram.
Yep, just
But
keep it simple.
yeah. And I might change my business name too, because always changing.
Right? We're always evolving and changing. And I'm so grateful that you are, because then you're able to bring us the soul collage today. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again, Joy, for being here. Thank you for sharing your gifts and yourself with us today.
Thank you for having me, April.
Hmm. And until next time, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let us know that you enjoyed this series or this episode. Put some comments in there. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, be well.